Great. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Melanie Bladow. I am the principal of Turn Consulting based here in Anchorage, Alaska, and my specialty is digital transformation. Just give you a brief background on my career. I started my career in the late 90s as a software developer, and I built a lot of the early digital technologies, specifically like web applications and things that we did then. And I really enjoyed working with business customers to solve their challenges. And from there, I moved into consulting and then into IT leadership as a chief information officer for BP, kind of in their global exploration function. And then through that process, as I worked with more and more like strategic technical initiatives, I came to understand that the technology that I was so passionate about was never going to work if people didn't use it. It was never going to create any value for a business if it wasn't actually integrated in with people and with business. So after that, I kind of moved out into a business unit and started looking at how can you actually implement business change that will create different business outcomes. And so I've come up with a methodology in terms of breaking down digital transformation of a couple different methodologies. I'm going to walk you through one today. So first, I just want to level set, and I really appreciate what Craig had said. So what is digital transformation? I feel like in the industry, we talk about this a lot, and I think it means different things to different people. So I'm going to talk you through what I see as the components of digital transformation. The first is technology, and we're familiar with this. There's all kinds of technology out there that enables us to do things. So I look at things through a technology lens, and we like to spend a lot of time talking about this. People get really excited about it, about all the different things technology can do for us. The second component of digital transformation really has to do with your business process. So how are your processes structured? What decisions are you making how are you making decisions about what your business is doing? What is your actual steps that you're going to execute on a day-to-day basis? And the third aspect here is people. So these are the people who are actually going to use technology in your business process to do something. And it's all three of those together that allow us to actually create transformation. So these are, in my mind, three equal components. And in any project where you're going to implement technology, you need to be thinking about how you're going to address things at these three different lenses. I feel like we got a really good introduction from both Vinay and Craig about some of the technologies and things that are being used to actually implement technology for them and look at that. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about that today. I'm going to look at actually the people aspects of it. And so as I move into that, one of the lenses I like to think about is, how do we actually create value in digital transformation? So I take this model and I turn it around and I look at technology. So when we look at our technology, when we first apply that, what we end up with is a lot of cost. Okay, it costs money to implement technology. It costs money to buy it. It takes a lot of skilled resources to put it in place. We've all been through big technical change initiatives. They're complex. They cost us not only in terms of dollars, they cost us in terms of actual resources and time. So there's a big cost here. And I've been in a lot of projects where, especially when in my time as a software developer, where we would be working with customers to build products. And the first thing that they would cut from our projects was testing and training. So if you cut testing and you cut training, you're cutting people out of that picture and allowing them the chance to experiment and use the technology in favor of more components or more features. So technology really, once we have that in place, all we've done is spent a lot of money. In order to actually create value, we'll need to then apply that technology on top of our business process. So actually make business decisions and take business actions based on that technology. And the only way we're going to apply that is by having actual people use the technology in that process. So it's applying the people and process on top of the technology that actually creates value. So that's where value is created. So I've seen a lot of work in IT where we want to create technology as a value center. But the truth is that, when we spend money on technology, when we implement it, it is necessarily a cost for our business. The value comes from applying that technology to the process and helping people use it. So change happens. Where does that change happen of digital transformation? Where do we actually get change to occur? So the really important stuff, the really hard stuff, and the really challenging stuff is all about people. So in order to actually implement change, you need people to take action to change their behavior. And this is the part that I think all of us struggle with. When we look at technology, that's an engineering discipline. And when we look at most aspects of oil and gas, those also an engineering discipline. And our strength is not in understanding people. Our strength is in doing things and making stuff. So I've come up with a framework for how you can think about engaging people in change. So the first thing that we're going to ask ourselves is, why do people change? So I've heard from several of you that, in oil and gas here, we have this kind of, we do things this way because we've always done things this way. And I got to tell you, I came into oil and gas from a technical background of software engineering, and we're very experimental. We like to, try different things. And I'm going to tell you one thing. If I have an operator at my pipeline, I don't want somebody that's like, hey, what happens when I push this button, right? I want somebody who's steady, right? We want steady state operations. That guy comes to work in the morning and he's like, man, my plant did not blow up yesterday. I know exactly what I did. And if I do that, it is not going to blow up today. And that is what he cares about, steady state operations. So understanding that mindset, now I can start to begin to approach those people when I come to them with a change program, understanding where they come from. And that's very important, is to really get into the heads of the people you're asking to do these changes, to understand what do they care about and what are they concerned about.
5 minutes.
So I want you to think about change on a spectrum here. And I'm going to talk you through, I like to think about the reasons that people change. There's two reasons, and they occur on two ends of a spectrum. The first reason I change is because I have to. Something externally has forced me to come in, and I know that I have to do this new thing. The second reason that I as a person change is because I want to. I'm inspired, I'm engaged, I want to do this. The classic example I give of this is, let's say you have $1,000, right? You have $1,000 in your bank account and the IRS comes to you with a bill and says, you owe me $1,000. You will pay that $1,000 because you know you have to and you don't want to go to jail. Apple releases the iPhone 12 and you have said same $1,000 in your bank account and you're quite happy to just give it to Apple because you really, really want that new iPhone. So if you think about the two different reasons and how you personally engage with that, you can see this spectrum in your own life. So I change because I have to, because I know that I have to. I know there are certain things that I have to do. I change because I want to, because of a feeling motivator, because there's something in me that has caused desire. So when I look at this, I look at trying to move people in my transformation programs from the I have to end of the spectrum to the I want to end of the spectrum by creating engagement, by having empathy, and by doing a lot of listening. The more you can move people from the left-hand side of this spectrum to the right-hand side of the spectrum, the more you will increase their engagement and buy into that change. And I'll talk you through a very simple method that I used recently for a large oil pipeline operator when we were implementing cloud-based technology. The more you end up with people from the I want to side to the I have to side, as a leader and a manager and a practitioner of technology, the more of your energy and effort it's going to take. You are better positioned to take your energy and effort and putting it into increasing engagement and buy-in for the eventual end practitioners and users of this change than you are in trying to force the change. So how are you going to do that? I'm going to talk you through a very simple methodology that I used. So I am involved in a project where we're implementing some cloud-based technology, which is changing the business process of a major oil pipeline operator. And one of the things that we did is we went in and realized early on that there was a lot of challenges. So we went in and spent a lot of time just listening to people complain. This is my #1 go-to, just get them complaining about how bad the world is and listen, listen, listen. Then in order to create buy-in into our eventual end solution, one of the ladies on my team actually had a background with a tabletop gaming company. And we went in and we created a physical tabletop model of the pipeline and the operations of this particular company. And we got the folks who sat in the operations control center to come together with us around a table and start to actually physically interact with these little, they were little cube block components that we put together. And we got them to physically interact. Okay, like, let's talk about how does your process actually work? And they would physically interact with these components. And we wouldn't touch anything on the table. We would get them to personally start moving things around and talking us through. And then we would write down possibilities. And using this process, we got them to start thinking about how could my operation be different in a safe environment where they could experiment freely, and they became enrolled in that change. And so we came up with new business processes that they were involved in creating by actually having them physically interact with an analog twin of the operation. So by getting them to kind of see themselves in this change, we took a lot of time up front. But now that we're in the testing and rollout phase, all those operators who were deeply involved in the initial process that we mapped out through this, they have had to work extra hours. They've had to do a lot of extra things in our testing, and they are the most staunch advocates of the change when they've had to experience kind of the most, I would say, pain or change from that testing, because they were involved in the very beginning and because we gave them a way to be completely engaged in what we were creating and bought in. So really, it can be simple things that you can do to create this, but the trick of it really is to try to figure out how can you get people to be more engaged in that change early on, so that further down the road, you have less of your time and energy enforcing it. Thank you. That's all I had to say.